At 8 o'clock, we got Georgia Tech, who went 7-6, traveling to Colorado, who went 9-4 last year. Georgia Tech favored by 4.5 points on ESPN. Haynes King went 196, 269, threw for 2,114 yards, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jamal Haynes had 169 carries for 944 yards and 9 touchdowns. And Eric Singleton Jr. had 56 catches for 754 yards and 3 touchdowns. For Colorado, Shedeur Sanders went 353 of 477, threw for 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Isaiah Augustave had 85 carries for 384 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Travis Hunter had 96 catches for 1,258 yards and 15 touchdowns. These two teams have never played, by the way. Georgia Tech returns Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. Colorado returns nobody. And they're really praying that Caden Salter ends up being a player that you think he can be at Colorado. Colorado's coming off a very successful season, a 9-3 season where, man, if you don't lose the Kansas game, you could have been going to the Big 12 championship and maybe playing their way into the college football playoff. That Kansas game hurts if you're Colorado. That Kansas game really hurts. I think by far the one that hurt the most, though, was the Kansas State game. Because Kansas, you kind of got your ass kicked for 60 minutes. And even though that was an unexpected ass kicking for 60 minutes, it was an ass kicking. Kansas State was a game that you could have won. You had the lead late in the fourth, and you just found a way to lose that game against the Wildcats. And if you win that game, you would have gone 10-2. You would have gone one game better in conference. You would have gone to the conference championship, where I don't know if you would have been playing Arizona State, Iowa State, or BYU, depending on how tiebreakers work. But it would have been a really, really great Colorado team, and you would have had a shot at going to the playoffs, honestly. This Colorado team is not that. They went 9-3 last year before the bowl game in the regular season. Georgia Tech's an interesting one. Georgia Tech's one of my sleepers, right? I think this is a team that is outside the top 25. Remember, 4 teams made the playoffs last year that were outside the top 25. And if you're talking about teams I think could do that, Georgia Tech is one of them. They went 7-5 last year in the regular season. I'm not going to deny that's not a great record, right? But they had a really hard schedule last year that they found ways to beat really good teams on it, right? Remember, this was a Georgia Tech team that beat Miami. Undefeated Miami in week 11? Something like that, right? Very late in the season, where it looked like Miami was cruising to a playoff berth, and Georgia Tech was one of 2 reasons they did not. The other was Syracuse in the end of the regular season. But they also lost badly to Syracuse, right? They lost badly to Notre Dame, and this was just not a great Georgia Tech squad. But I think what people forget a lot about it last year is they did not have Haynes King, at least a healthy Haynes King, for the vast majority of last season. If Haynes King can stay healthy, Georgia Tech is a team that can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the conference. I 100% believe that. They went toe-to-toe with Georgia last year. They honestly should have beat Georgia last year, and that would have made for a whole slew of issues, right? It would have been really interesting to see. They would have been 9-3 Georgia, and obviously they make it into the college football playoffs anyways because they would have beat Texas, but then where do you seed them? Obviously, the conference champions and Boise State and Arizona State are going to be higher than you, so do you see Clemson at 4, Georgia 4? Georgia won the regular season matchup. I assume they would have gotten the 4 seed. But this is a Georgia Tech team that I think can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the entire conference. This is a Georgia Tech team that I think is slept on when you're talking about dark horses that can make the college football playoff. Georgia Tech is a dark horse that can make the college football playoff. They don't have an insanely hard schedule. They have 2 really behemoths on their schedule in Clemson and Georgia, right? But they avoid Miami. They avoid SMU. If you were asking for a better schedule, I don't know if you're going to get it if you're Georgia Tech. You do have to play Clemson, but you avoid Miami, you avoid SMU, you avoid, who was the other one they avoid? That's supposed to be pretty good, in Louisville, right? You avoid those 3. You get Syracuse, but Syracuse is on a down year. Duke seems to be the hardest one that's on your schedule that seems doable, right? I think it's going to be a really hard season for Georgia Tech, but if you could pull off an upset against Clemson or Georgia and then win all the ones you're supposed to win, it's a playoff team if you're Georgia Tech. And even if you don't, I think 10-2, maybe with that record, as long as you put up a fight against Clemson and a fight against Georgia, I think might be enough to sneak into the playoffs. Maybe. Anyways, all that being said, I think Georgia Tech is the much better team. I think they return a lot more talent than Colorado. I understand they're going on the road to Colorado, but I think Colorado is going to take a little bit to get going, and that's even if they do get going. I'm not the biggest believer in Colorado this year. I think they're losing a lot of talent for a team like Colorado. I like Georgia Tech to win. I like Georgia Tech to cover the 4.5 point spread.